And our second general announcement is that we also have Threads, Meta's new platform that's pretty similar to Twitter. So we'll be posting on there as well. Um, so just to get everything moving, we did have a slight delay. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest today. Our first one of which is Devin. For all of our guests, we're going to be doing our name, our position here at Meta Theory DuskBreakers, as well as our childhood favorite character. This could be from like a TV, movie, comic book, video game, you name it. But I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Devin.
Thank you very much, Jade. Can everyone hear me? Is my voice coming through the internet airwaves perfectly well? Awesome. Hi, everyone. So excited to be here and to talk about what we're doing at Meta Theory. My name is Devin. My pronouns are he, him, and his. My position right now is content producer at Meta Theory and under the DuskBreakers brand. And I love this question. So my favorite childhood TV character, little niche, maybe you understand. It's Darkwing Duck from the Disney cartoon Darkwing Duck. I believe this aired in the early 90s. Let's get dangerous. Yes. Oh my goodness, you understand. I feel very good right now. Sometimes like the reference either goes through, or sometimes folks are like, "Huh, Darkwing Duck, Donald Duck, but different." But yeah, it's like Batman, but a little bit sillier. He's my hero in purple, and yes, the old animated show, indeed. I think Darkwing Duck or Barney the dinosaur might be the reason for my favorite color being purple. Who's to say? We love creative interpretation and art. And that's it for me. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Devin. Oh my gosh. I was about to say too, that is definitely Batman, but like Disney. It is so cute. But yes, our next guest is Molly.
Woo woo, what's up? I'll do my own air horn since none have been provided for me. Note to Devin. Yeah, I'm Molly. I'm one of the senior writers here, along with Tavius. My pronouns are she, her. And my favorite childhood character, I decided to go with Sokka from Avatar Last Airbender because ATLA is one of my all-time favorite shows still as an adult. And always have a soft spot for the comedic relief character. Thank you, Jade, for the trumpets. Cool. Was there anything else I was supposed to answer? I think that was it.
Wait, sorry, my audio is really low because I had to switch to my phone for the mic, but did you say your position here at DuskBreakers?
Yes, senior writer. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Perfect.
Peter, you can still choose Zuko. Zuko was definitely a crush I had.
Oh my gosh, Zuko. But yeah, I think that should be all of them, unless you want to say another favorite character, which would be awesome.
I'll just steal Peter's and say Zuko. Just kidding.
But awesome. And then our next guest is going to be Tavius.
Hello, everybody. I am Tavius. I am co-head writer here with Molly. We've been here a long time. My pronouns is he, they. And my favorite, I'm aging myself here, but my favorite childhood character is Falcor from The Neverending Story, the Luck Dragon. So yeah, I think that's it for my bit. I don't think there's any more I have to say.
Well, I'm not familiar. You definitely have to link me with that one. Probably something that I have to look up too. Not from aging, but simply because I didn't grow up with American comics if it is American. But yes, our next guest is going to be Sim, one of our world builders.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. My name's Sim. My pronouns are he, him. I do world building and writing at Meta Theory. This is going to be a little embarrassing because I was only like 8 or 9 years old when I watched this movie, but my favorite character from my childhood in the 80s was Ellen Ripley. Don't ask why my parents were letting me watch an R-rated movie. That was very scary, but it's still my favorite movie to this day, and she's still my favorite protagonist in any science fiction movie ever. So.
Well, that's awesome. I also probably need a link to that too. I definitely need to catch up on like American entertainment from the 80s. I think maybe I'm wrong, but like the only reference I have to movies in the 80s is like Back to the Future, unless that's the 90s. Even then.
Just do me
Maybe
a
I'm
favor,
also
Jade,
dating
and
myself.
just make sure when you look up alien movies, skip all of them except for the first two.
Definitely.
Okay.
Perfect reference. I'll keep that noted for my movie marathon this weekend. And of course, last but not least, we have Peter.
Woo! Hi, my name is Peter. My pronouns are he, him. I am a writer and coordinator here at MetaTheory. Some of you may know me as Lorelock way back in the day, where I started off writing Breaker fan fictions, and here I am. In terms of favorite characters, I'm going to take a hard right turn and go to a book series, an old fantasy series called Ranger's Apprentice. My favorite character would just have to be the protagonist, Will, and yes, I will link it, because I don't think anyone will get that reference, but very cool. Got me really hyped in fantasy, it got me really excited to write, and then, here I am. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Dude, you out nerded me there. I don't know that one, and I know most everything. Wow.
Thank you for the link. I will definitely be reading that after this AMA, and we'll probably go to the bookstore soon after. But yes, these are our panelists today. I'm super excited to be sharing their lovely work with you all and what they have coming for all of us here in the community. But for our next segment, we're going to be having Devin, our content producer, go ahead and give a quick brief on how we get our content made and how we're able to release such amazing comics and lore to you all.
Awesome. Hey everyone, very excited to give a little bit of insight into our content production process and what's really driving us right now narratively. So the first thing that crossed my mind and then later my desk is how do we bring like that sense of narrative potency, that emotional connection from one character to another in a heightened reality we have in this wonderful sci-fi genre. It's relationships, and it's experiences in our different type of reality that we're creating with you all. As far as production pipeline goes, what's been really great in my experience is working with our brilliant writers in defining our narrative direction, what we're going to cover in the season of stories that we explore leading up to various releases, different timelines and milestones, and along the way, we streamline our processes broadly into ideation, pre-production, the actual production, which is the editing, the artists composing their visuals, and then a publishing phase. And what's been really great so far is protecting each phase. When we're ideating, we have to protect that process and understand when we're ideating, it isn't the time to edit. It's the time to throw things on the wall, to explore, to let our imaginations not forget the joy that comes with creating and saying, what if we had this character and a character we've already explored before find a moment with each other later on, and how do we set that up so that we can really create such emotionally compelling moments and for lack of better terms, scenes from one product to the next. We released a 4-panel webcomic and also a time-lapse drawing with a nice audio drama accompanying that. And we wanted to not be too afraid of exploring just that emotional reality of what happens when you're on the Dusk and you're at the foot of witnessing something strange and unusual than what most breakers are used to when they're going through their day-to-day as DuskBreakers. We take very good care to make sure that there's the right amount of approval processes from ideation to pre-production to production, so that we get the right eyes on each draft of each script that we explore. We also source from our company the many different ideas and their perspectives on what they'd like to see and what they think is the most compelling stories and relationships to explore. And what we've arrived at is really nice, for lack of better terms, like hygienic process of at this point we're ideating, we're working however many months or month and a half ahead of when we plan to release. And it's very empowering to be able to look at our calendar and say, hey, we're on the right track. We have ideas that are being explored in very measured ways that are great for time, measure accurately the bandwidth from one artist to another, but also we're still not forgetting that as we're creating and as we are handing off from one team to another, we're still having fun and we're still maintaining such excitement for what else we can explore. So it really is making sure that both the left brain, the organizational, the time management piece, and the more right brain, the more abstract part, the joy, the creativity, the expression, that both of those needs get met simultaneously. And that's been the cornerstone of what's kicked off a very exciting, steady cadence of releases that we have for you every week.
Very well said, Devin. Yeah, I really enjoy like creating this process alongside you guys, and making sure that the community's input is being liaisoned to you guys and seeing how you guys work with everyone's suggestions, and just watching the process in action has been amazing. But also, if anyone in the audience does have any questions for our content team, please feel free to write it in the Breaker Canteen stage. We'll also have like that live Q&A segment towards the end. But we're going to be moving on to some moderated Q&A. So I guess the first question for all of our panelists is, what were the biggest challenges for each of you building out like these new processes as you work with each other? Like you mentioned, the time management, and maybe like moving from idea in your head and then putting it to paper, and then I guess delegating it to animators, the artists, the writers. Maybe even like if you have creative block, how do you navigate that? And I guess I can go ahead and start with we can start with Sim for this one.
The most challenging thing for me, I guess from the beginning, is I'm used to working alone. Like I've done world building and been like pretty active in the this small like hard science fiction community. You usually revolving around this website called Atomic Rockets, the Tough SF blog, Kyle Hill's community, and in doing that, I'm kind of working alone, and I'm used to working within the sort of like parameters of like hard science fiction, and basically playing with my own toy set, right? So getting on this project was the first time I had to work with somebody else's tools or toy set, and they're in another universe made by somebody else. And so it was taking the finding that balance between like the direction that the writers may want to go with their particular story or aspect of world building, and being flexible, and like finding that balance between like making it plausible and realistic, but also not to the point where it's just boring, and so yeah, that has been the most fun and challenging thing throughout for the last year for me, and I've learned a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely interesting working within your own, I guess, mind tools that you're explaining, and then having to come together with a team and really expanding and actually like creating a world definitely is a huge feat. But we're so happy to have you here and your input, and I love like hearing all of the really detailed lore pieces that you guys come up with together. It's really amazing seeing everyone put their heads together. And then I would say my next pairing, since they work very closely together, would be Molly and Tavius. What is your guys' take on challenges as well?
Cool. Yeah, we can kind of. I'll start us off, but we kind of both, jump in whenever, Tavius. I think the most challenging thing for me is like, so I'm used to working collaboratively. I've done a lot of like podcasts and like short films and worked on projects. But I think the multimedia aspect is the hardest, and having to create multiple media pieces at the same time. Like, and trying to, like the game is being developed at the same time as our content is being developed. So trying to make sure those things are synced and that like nothing breaks the world is in across a global team has been a challenge, but we're definitely working through it.
Yeah, for me, it's in the same idea frame, but it's really the sending out and considering audience when you're trying to consider all these narrative elements and how the audience is going to consume these ideas. That has been really an interesting development process from all of us working together. Me and Molly, it was just me and Molly in the beginning, and most of the creative team just hashing out these ideas. And now we've developed this really, really great system with all of these people. But it's still the consideration of how does the audience know that all of these characters are doing all of these things across all of these platforms and keeping that energy synced. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you both. And then I'll go ahead and pass it to Devin as well. Any challenges, especially moving into the content producer role?
Yes. So one challenge that definitely invigorated me to dive to just see the task all the way through, from meeting the challenge, recognizing the challenge, and then figuring out what it is that needed to be done to get us operating at a very efficient pace, was putting together a pipeline process that works the best with the minds, with the different types of minds that we have. People come from different backgrounds on our team, such as like, I'll speak for myself. I come from a media production and comedy writing background. We have some folks who come from different backgrounds, such as advertising, more nonfiction writing, you name it. With the team that we have, one of the biggest challenges that I saw, and that I also find right now, we're at a very smooth moving, results based rhythm right now, is how do we create a pipeline that works fluidly with the minds that we have. People communicate differently. Clarifying expectations has been the bread and butter across each vertical. When passing it from, say, from writer to artist, does the artist have enough that they need to create the visuals that they need? Do they need character briefs and references? And if so, what's an easy way to get that information across? So that required, certainly on my end, a good deal of holistic thinking. I needed to pull back and just see all the different phases and how each team member fit into each phase of that. And it's a lot. It was definitely a lot to handle at first, but in this case, I feel like the way we got to where we are now is the only way is through, and the only way is we got to sync on how we best communicate and what each team needs so that they can work the quickest and the easiest. Because nothing helps my producer brain more than like just being able to look at everything that's on a timeline and going, okay, this is where we are, this is what we need, and this is what we did, and this is what we can celebrate. That's what I'd say that's one challenge.
Definitely. And especially since we all work in different time zones and possibly in different languages, especially with all of our different artists that we work with, definitely having all those pieces of the puzzle laid out in front of you definitely helps a lot. And then for Peter, this is kind of a transition slash double whammy. So the first part is, what is your biggest challenge? As well as moving into our second question is, what is it like being, for your perspective, a previous like community member coming in to work with our team? And then for all the other panelists, it's slightly the inverse, where it's like, how does it feel working with someone who came from the community, who knows your lore, and now you get to build alongside them? I think that's a very unique opportunity.
Ooh, the double whammy. All right. Starting off with like challenges and a little bit, I guess, about my background. I came from esports, pretty much fresh out of college. I got, snapped up into meta theory. I worked at an esports company for a while. We found out about the project. Several of us came in and, got super involved. Obviously, I got a little more involved, hung out a lot, read stories, things like that. Eventually, a very, very early hiring call from meta theory back in December, January of last year. January of 22. They weren't hiring for any writers, but I pretty much just on a whim DM'd Bernie, and here I am. And so, in terms of challenges, remote work and startups are core aspects of meta theory, but those were things I was already comfortable with. Definitely, like collaborating creatively was really interesting. I've sort of lived in my own independent story worlds, and I've been a long-running game master. I guess going on like 9 years, which is a lot closer to like half my life than probably most other people here. So that's always like kind of been things in my head. Notes only have to make sense to me, things like that. So really learning how to articulate my thoughts and the thought processes behind them, and kind of figuring out like how my brain works when I create, and then actually explaining that to other people and in a way that makes sense is really fun. But definitely the big challenge I ran into. And in terms of coming in from a community member, it's been pretty cool. I think that sort of the vision and vibe of meta theory and really the industry as a whole has changed pretty significantly. And so it's been super insightful to watch that from the inside. Previously that I was just an audience member. We would get an announcement of like, oh, that's cool. But now, marketing, especially being involved with like marketing, AMAs, things like that. It's been really interesting watching everything grow. I think it helps me to remember what it's like and like what drew me to the project way back in like previous December. And then sort of like trying to take that and apply that excitement I had and share that with other people.
Awesome. Yeah, I think coming from like that perspective, it's very unique, especially since you get to work alongside the writers and the world builders that we do have. So I really love working with you. So I'm really excited for everyone to see all of your hard work. And I guess for the inverse of that question, we can start with Molly and Tavius, having someone who was so engaged with your lore and now you get to work with them. What is that like?
Ugh, very challenging, obviously. No, it's been great. It's like it's such a huge benefit to have, like Peter was saying, someone who really like loves this project and like understands the audience perspectives and is essentially like our target audience member, like with us in the writers room. And Peter also has a really amazing understanding of like gameplay and what audiences would want to see in the games, and how that can translate to content. So I feel like they've been a really good champion for getting more of our like lore and narrative into the games that we're developing out.
Yeah, to me, it's I always want to make sure that I'm a fan of the things that we're working on in a sense of like I'm generally the biggest fan. That's where I've always worked from creatively, is like I want to like stuff. And so it's really nice to always bounce back to Peter and be like, this is making sense, right? And we're not just going too deep down a creative rabbit hole, right? This is still good content, and he's really, really great at that. Plus, like, he's really good at making twists, man. Like his mind works really well that way, and I always love the stuff he comes up with.
Awesome. And then Sim as well, I know that you talked about collaborating, and I guess this is very an interesting setup where you actually get to collaborate with someone who is also taking in a lot of your content as well. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, some of this is going to be echoing what's already been said. Everybody has a different skill set that I've learned from. For example, I tend to be very literal minded. Shocker if you if you look at what I focus on. And Tavius is an amazing poet. So I will tend to look to him, for. I'll anxiously wait for his feedback on whether something's worded well. So when I write something, I make this stab at being kind of poetic with some writing, and I get his comment that says "love that." I'm like, yes, I'm getting it. I'm getting there. And Molly is Molly's got a lot of experience in screenwriting and writing in general, and I've taken some classes in that in college. Nothing extensive. It was just a few writing courses, fiction writing courses. But so she really knows her stuff as far as how to actually organize and assemble the 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 structure of a script, which is not something I have pretty much any experience with, other than comic dabbling in comic script writing with my friend and coworker Darren. And Peter's a lot has he the way he described his some of the things he's the learning curve he had with kind of building things in his own head. It's very relatable for me. And the thing that he's been enormously helpful, and I'll be I'll just shut up and listen sometimes, is when it gets to how story interfaces with actual gameplay, a game design, which I've always been fascinated by. It's always something I've wanted to work on. But it is definitely its own skill set. And listening to him, for instance, I may throw out an idea, and he'll bring me back down to earth. That's not gonna work. So, and then he'll give me some insight on instead of just coming up with cool sci-fi guns, how would they actually work in the game? So yeah, everybody's got these different skill sets that I've been trying to learn from as I work, so I can then in myself have a more expanded skill set going forward in this career.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really awesome to hear that everyone has their own tools of their trade, and that they're able to I guess balance each other out, as well as I guess each one teach one, and have everyone learn from each other. So that's really awesome. And I guess to incorporate that skill set into our breakers when working with these different mediums. So we have our arts team, animators. We talked about 4-panel comics. We have all these different types of mediums that we have for our breakers. How do you guys as a team keep track of the breakers stories and ambitions, and I guess intentions? I can go ahead and start with Devin on this one.
Absolutely. We frequently chat. We stay up to date. We do have documents that summarize our narrative direction, summarizing that season, if you will, into different parts as well. We do keep a database of different breakers, of their histories, and they all interlink with different documents about different elements of our world, such as gribbles, such as what the dusk is, and how each of those details relate to each other. The writing team here really does such a strong job of keeping each other in sync and up to date, and we're never afraid to ask questions. We're never afraid to say, "Oh, could someone remind me about this real quick?" Like it's this eagerness and active listening across a team that I think keeps all that information afloat and keeps our train running smooth.
Awesome. Yeah, we love active listening, especially when there's so many moving components. And I guess that goes into my next question, where is there something unique about world building or writing or content producing for DuskBreakers specifically compared to other creative projects that you previously work on? I guess an example of this may be like building a world for both a game and a comic, or a game and just overall lore that can be interpreted into like a web series. Yeah, and I guess I'll go ahead and start with Sim.
I think the challenge for me mostly, and this is, I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record here. I'm sorry, but the challenge for me initially was again, like, being more flexible about the actual world building itself. I like my process, like when I'm alone at night doing world building for like my own projects. I have this very systematic way I go about it, and it's like try to, like, I treat it almost like a science research project. So I'm like referencing the scientific literature. I'm looking at like what's been done historically in scientific literature. Science fiction literature, and well, science and stuff like that. But there's a lot of aspects of this world that are quasi magical, and magical fantasy is just not a genre I've worked in, and so having like components to the world building that borders on the supernatural, and learning how to, like, and Tavius has been in a lot of help with this in this regard. Learning how to like mesh those two together, kind of like you see in some major game IPs, and it's an important part of sci-fi games, not so much like science fiction novels. That is, if you look at like Mass Effect, which is like an example I probably overused. There's basically magic in it. Same with Star Wars, of course. You have the Force, and learning how to integrate that and keep like gameplay implications in mind, and juggling this, like Molly said, this sort of transmedia aspect. That has been by far the most challenging thing. If I'm by myself and I want to design a space elevator, I can like look up scientific literature and just like treat it like an engineering project. But a realistic one would probably take like you a week to get from the Earth to orbit. Nobody wants that's a bit slow. So like it's like learning how to make those compromises and putting in, like, sprinkling in some magic in there. Not being too hung up on details. And that's been the challenge.
Definitely, yeah, and definitely having to think about like gameplay mechanics. I'll probably pass over to Molly and Tavius on this, like, next after my next segment. But yeah, having to keep that in mind seems like a lot of not just engineering, as you mentioned on your end, of how to approach like landscape, but even just how like characters move in these worlds. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Molly and Tavius, as they also mentioned that they worked on different forms of media, how that comes across in their minds when they attack this type of concept.
Yeah, I think it's hard because, as a startup, we don't have the luxury of being like, here's a 2-hour movie that explains our world. Okay, great, you get it. Now we're going to make a bunch of smaller content going off of that. And I think instead what we have arrived at is that we are introducing the world through smaller content media bits and our website and these little bits that hopefully get people intrigued, and then kind of using our game to tell a larger narrative. So it's my first time ever approaching a project like that, but I think it'll work out. I'm interested. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, from my side, I like the ability to tell, vignettes, basically, like when we're telling sort of just the classic energy that you get even in like Clone Wars, the animated series, right? Where it's just you get little bits and stories from the world that we hopefully can bring together into a much larger narrative, so you guys can see how we tie all these things together. That's mostly what I really enjoy doing here at Metatheory, and what my experience is before is I take a bunch of large moving parts and I like to string them together and make them all flip and make sense. It's kind of like apologetics for story writing. But that is really like a beautiful thing to do in a multimedia way. I've worked in a lot of theater and podcasting and stage work and movie stuff, but this is really like a way that we can drop like a comic energy, and we can give a short novel energy, and then we can also give like a full immersive sort of game energy where you can see all the markers that we've left and how they work together. So yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I will add, as a writer, and I mainly write a lot of the scripts and the dialogue, since that's what my background is, and help construct a lot of the narratives. It is really fun getting to work across different formats. That's probably just like one of my favorite parts. And also just getting to write in so many different voices. I presented the challenge part of it at first, but I do want to add there is a definite element of like fun and creativity to getting to work in multimedia too.
Definitely. And I'm so excited for y'all to be able to explore that. I know we were touching on like short form content, and then we're also moving into like animated narratives and all of that great stuff. So definitely looking forward for everyone to see what we have coming out next. And then I guess for one last take on the question, Peter, how is it like being like more, I would say, game focused and game centered, and having to translate that into storytelling, and your spin on that?
Yeah, it's a super interesting kind of conundrum. I think a lot of our pitfalls and kind of the things that I feel like I'm bringing up like once a meeting, it's just kind of talking about the concept of like ludonarrative dissonance, which is essentially the difference between what story is being presented to you in the game, and then like what the game actually is and how it's making you feel, and sort of like how that's going. And so we're creating a style of game, and I'm not going to be leaking any game details here. But then you also want to make sure that the things that we're writing and creating outside of that are making that make sense. Like we don't want to, for instance, be telling a story about like we're like saving the world, and then our game is like Animal Crossing. We're not making Animal Crossing. But just like as an example, so taking these big ideas, trying to find ways to like effectively communicate. Games are really strict in the ways that they're like storytelling mediums. So trying to like effectively communicate a story, have some of our big, interesting, more complex story beats kind of come outside of that through our other content, and then still like someone who loads into a game like understands what they're playing, what's going on, things like that. It's a really fun challenge, something that we're always kind of working on, and always kind of combating as we're in this development process and this content process. So it's very much like a living, breathing kind of thing. So it's definitely been both a challenge and probably the most fun aspect of the work.
Awesome. Thank you. I don't think we have any live Q&A questions. If anyone does have any questions, feel free to ask them away in the Breaker Canteen chat. But yes, I hope that this all brought some really great insight on how our content team ideates and gets the content processed and worked out for you guys before release, and then as we approach release for our content. I guess we'll go ahead and do any last notes from panelists. This could be like saying your favorite part in working with the team or in the working process, or I guess what you look forward to with the community when we do have our content releases, which, by the way, everyone, it's every Tuesday that we do have new content coming out. I'll go ahead and start with Devin.
Thank you. I tried to unmute. I sneezed twice, and then the mute never got unmuted, but here I am. I think my voice is transferring perfectly well. Something that comes to mind immediately that has brought me a lot of joy in working with everybody here and putting out content is I really love the eagerness that we bring into the ideas that we can explore all of our stories with and all of our fun characters. It's definitely with the scripts and the dialogue that's been coming out recently. Big shout out to Molly there as well for breathing that life into it. It's feeling very warm to me, and I feel like this genre definitely benefits from having like that interactive element to it. And there's a lot of what I'll refer to shorthand as yes and when we're ideating. What I've been hearing a lot of in our meetings is, yes, that's so excellent, and what if they were left-handed, and so on and so forth. It's that approach, that soft skill rather, that like really makes us feel like we're building something. And I think it's great that we get to do that, especially in this heightened reality.
Yeah, I totally agree with Devin. And the last thing I want to say is, yeah, please, as y'all are reading content, like, please give us feedback if there's certain characters you like, if there's certain narratives you want to see continue as we release this content on Tuesday. Like, we're at a stage right now where we are like, can really, really take community feedback into consideration. So any thoughts you give, like, could, you know, again, unless they're technically improbable or break something, like, can't, like, you all really have the opportunity to influence this world. So I would love to really encourage people to do that, and encourage your friends to do it too, because we're making a lot of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, if we break Breaker canon, we do have to ship you to a different galaxy, much like into the new Spider-Verse movie.
Definitely. And then Sim, any last thoughts as well?
Yeah, I think to go back to like what I wanted to be originally, like when I was going to school, I wanted to be either a scientist or a science communicator or a science teacher. And so with this job, what I've really been enjoying when working with others from the beginning is it's really fun when somebody takes like somebody who's really just focused on, you know, making a good story, and they say, hey, I want to do X, you know, like I want, you know, X, Y, and Z to happen in the story, and then I get to take it and try to like make it make sense, like explain it, how does this happen physically in this world, and how does it fit into the larger world, and in a way, it it feels a bit like what I set out to do, and that I get to like explain all these cool concepts, like how different aspects of the world, like it could be an artist too, for example. Somebody on the art team may design something that was original, purely aesthetic. They were just doing something they wanted it to look cool, and then building out lore for like kind of reverse engineering it and building it out to where like there's this interesting lore to back it up. So now you have something that looks cool and it has a detailed explanation for why it exists. That hopefully, if I did my job, feels logical, and adds depth to the world. So yeah, that's been enormously fun from day one.
Awesome. And then Tavius, Peter, any last notes before we wrap up?
I was gonna say, I've been here for 2 years. I've been here since, me and Molly have been here since DuskBreakers wasn't a word we knew yet. So, like, in this whole process, I've had, so much desire to see us get content out, and I'm really, really happy that we're at a stage now that we can get content out, like, in a consistent way, so we can really show people the crazy, beautiful stuff we've been creating. And I couldn't be any happier than that. Also, I've been doing the voice work, and we're really happy to be getting that stuff going, because that stuff's really, really fun, and I always enjoy that side of it. When I see it all come together in the end, it's just a beautiful thing.
Perfect. Peter, any last notes?
Everyone's kind of hit most of the sentiments I'd really want to share. So, thanks for sticking with us. Check our website every Tuesday, dustbreakers.gg/comic. And we have fun stuff on the way.
Perfect. Yes. And Peter also helps with setting up those pages. So it's really great to see all of his hard work come into fruition on the back end of that as well. And yes, just to wrap up our AMA, be sure to follow our socials at DuskBreakers and at MetaTheory on Twitter, and then on Instagram and Threads by Meta, it's DuskBreakers GG. We did have a change in handle just to make everything synchronized. And also be sure to check out our Dusk highlights every 2 weeks, where we do give an overall update on the progress of our DuskBreakers team. And thank you so much to our panelists for being here and taking time out of your day. I will give you back your time in the universe, as Devin says. And thank you everyone in the audience for being with us, even if you could only stop by for a few minutes. We really love that you're here. And as I mentioned, we really enjoy and appreciate your feedback. Be sure to show us any of your feedback in the main hub, as well as if you are a holder, we do have the Breaker Bunks, the Vanguard Lounge, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday with their upcoming drop. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.